Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Imagine being Utah Senator Mitt Romney and believing anyone cares what you think about what constitutes embarrassing behavior. This is the same guy who marched with Black Lives Matter activists while wearing a COVID mask back in 2020, after all. So what is Mittens or Pierre Delecto, which was the name of Mitt's secret sock account online, claiming is so embarrassing? Well, he tells Politico it's embarrassing for Republicans to stand with President Trump physically in New York at his trial. Republicans like House Speaker Mike Johnson and Congressman Byron Donalds, Senators J.D. Vance, Rick Scott, and Tommy Tuberville, as well as former presidential candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy and Doug Burgum have all been there. And today, more congressional Republicans touched down in Manhattan, held a press conference. There were nearly a dozen of them today, including Representatives Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Bob Good, and Anna Paulina Luna, among others. Watch.
There is literally no branch of government that Michael Cohen has not lied to. He lied to investigators. He lied to the judge who sentenced him. He lied to the United States Congress, and he committed these lies for his own benefit. And while we're talking about what we saw in that courtroom going on for people's own benefit, we would be remiss if we did not mention this corrupt judge, this judge whose own family is making six figures off of Democrat politics that continues to gaslight the country that there's some sort of crime committed by President Trump. This is a made-up crime. No other American in the country would be charged with this type of crime. It's like the Mr. Potato Head doll of crimes, where they had to stick together a bunch of things that did not belong together. Observing the jury, I could see that there was a great appreciation for the liar that Michael Cohen was, and we are not getting a fair shake in front of this judge. The prosecutors don't even have to state the basis for their objections. He's agreeing with the prosecutors without even hearing argument on these objections, and there should be evidence getting in about the depth and breadth of Michael Cohen's lies that we're not seeing entered into it. And so we're here voluntarily supporting our friend President Trump, the leader of our movement, the leader of our party, and soon again the leader of this great country.
Yeah, Mitt, so embarrassing. I guess according to Romney, unity is something only Democrats are allowed to have. We're too principled on the losing, failing conservative right for such things. I guess we'll just have to keep losing instead. Thanks, Mitt, for your insight. I mean, seriously, listen to this guy.
I think it's a little demeaning to show up in front of a courthouse, and particularly one where we're talking about an allegation of paying a porn star. It's really very difficult to watch.
Why is it difficult to watch?
Well, you know, there's a level of dignity and decorum that you expect of people who are running for the highest station in the land, and going out and prostrating themselves in front of the public to try and apparently curry favor with the person who's our nominee is a little embarrassing.
You know, it's embarrassing being this much of a punk and a weasel while such grave evils tearing our republic apart. Joining us now to discuss the trial so far is constitutional law expert Jonathan Emord, a candidate to represent Virginia in the U.S. Senate. Jonathan, thanks for being here tonight.
Good to be with you.
Great. So cross-examinations wrapped up today of Michael Cohen. Trial's going to resume Monday so that President Trump can finally attend his son Barron's high school graduation. Did anything you heard today on the stand from Cohen stand out to you?
Yeah, I think the pivotal moment was when, during the cross-examination of Cohen, he dissembled when he referred to Schiller as the contact person that he had for receiving the information relevant to Trump. He was apparently engaged in some sort of security discussion with him. It's very hard to find a witness who is more untrustworthy than this one. Michael Cohen's history reveals that this man dissembles constantly under cross-examination and is a person who is apparently has a very grave difficulty discerning between truth and falsehood. And he seems to be able to come up with a tale whenever it suits his own personal interest. In this case, we know of the animus that he has against President Trump. That's been made apparent. And we also know that this man simply lacks the credibility necessary to hang their whole case on one person of this ilk. So that's the problem. They have a very poor case. This case is ridiculous. It's been assembled, really manufactured, and it's novel. And it really, to have a case that's essentially a misdemeanor records case that's passed the statute of limitations and turn it into 34 felony counts and tie it to a political interference type claim that even the FEC, which has jurisdiction over this matter, found to be baseless, is outrageous. And it's appropriate for members of Congress and anyone concerned with criminal justice in this country to stand shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump and go to that location and express their concerns. I think that's a remarkably good thing to do. The criminal justice system in this country is in deep trouble. People are fed up with this type of thing. We need to stand up and let our voices be known. And I think Mitt Romney is essentially a buffoon for suggesting otherwise.
No, I'm definitely with you on that analysis. And do you think it's not going to play well, even with a more friendly venue, you could say, for the prosecutors, where when Cohen's pressed on issues that he feels may be detrimental to the case he's trying to make against President Trump, that he says, I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall. But then when he's trying to make his arguments that he wants on specific on phone calls he had with President Trump, or meetings he had talking a decade ago, next thing you know, he's very specific. He remembers everything. He's got the mindset of an elephant. Nothing escapes this guy. But then again, once the defense tries to press him on anything that he knows isn't going to look too good for him or his case, then it's back to amnesia, even if we're talking about something that happened a lot more recently than 2016. So do you think that as a witness, supposedly the star witness of this case, or one of them, that may not play too well, even in a friendly venue?
Yeah, repeatedly in my whole history of cross-examining witnesses, whenever you see this sort of conduct where they have selective memory, particularly when it covers the same time period. So you're covering the same time period and he remembers certain facts that help his case, but then he has absolutely no memory when it calls into question his own validity. That is the mark of a serial liar. That's the mark of somebody who simply cannot be trusted. And I hope the jury comes to that conclusion. I hope at least one member of the jury does. This is a horrible case. I mean, it should have been dismissed at the outset. No sound jurist would ever allow this. A judge with reason would never allow this to proceed. It should have been dismissed for failure to state a claim. It's entirely impossible to reach the causality necessary to tie the truthful statement of legal fees to this case. I should mention quickly that every lawyer in the country would likely list this as legal fees, and I'll tell you why. The attorney-client privilege is otherwise at issue. If you were to give any specific representation of what money is spent for when it's for legal fees, then you potentially waive the attorney-client privilege. And so every lawyer in the country just about would not do this. And if this court rules against President Trump and the jury holds him and convicts him, what that will do is fundamentally change New York law if it's upheld, where you would not be able to protect the attorney-client privilege whenever you're listing the service, fees for services as legal fees. And so it would open up the real risk that confidential information would have to be disclosed in order to provide an adequate description, according to this court's standard, of legal fees.
Well, there's so much at risk and so much at play here, right? I know even some CNN panelists, I've been seeing some of those headlines are getting a little skittish because kind of like with the Russiagate hoax, they were promised so much evidence, and then as it drags out, the evidence never really seems to be forthcoming. Alvin Bragg says that he can, the reason why he can make the misdemeanor jump to the felony jump is because he has all this evidence, proving that this was done in furtherance of another crime, and that's why it can be raised up. And then again, nothing seems to come about on that front. What it seems to me at this point, just my opinion, and it seems President Trump's defense team is correct on this one. It seems because President Trump says the affair never happened, it seems he was being extorted back during 2016. Stormy and all the rest, the circles that they ran in, the lawyers that they ran with and the rest, that was what they would do. Someone who was high profile, they'll say, we have all this dirt on you, and if you want us to keep quiet, you're going to have to pay us a big chunk of money. So Stormy, when she was on the stand, she said, no, I wanted the story to come out that we had this affair and this had happened and that had happened. But then she also took the money and stayed quiet about it. So seems more the extortion, and now she's trying to cover it up with talking about very salacious sex acts. Who knows if she's just making it all up. But Jonathan, last 30 seconds to you.
Well, I agree with you. I think this is a situation of extortion. And I also think that, it's reminiscent of the Schiff show, right? In the skiff, where you have someone saying, oh, I've got all this evidence against Trump. It's an old saw. We know the truth. Look, they don't have the evidence to convict Donald Trump. This whole case is a sham, and it really ought to come to an end. The American people are sick of it. I think this is only going to help Donald Trump win the election. This whole thing was concocted to offset his chance of winning, and I think it's going to have the opposite effect.
Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate your analysis. Thanks for joining us tonight.